Hi and welcome to the Active Code podcast, brought to you by Aspire Active Partnerships. I'm Paul Griffiths, and joining me each week on the pod is Luke Johnson.
Aspire Active Partnerships is a community of like-minded business leaders who all believe that collaboration in the sports coaching and children's activity sector is essential for success. We've proven that working in collaboration does benefit business growth and essentially helps more children be more active more often.
To combat physical inactivity, we need organisations that are performing at their very best. Organisations will only operate to high standards if they are led well. So, if we can focus on developing high quality leaders throughout an organisation, not just at the top, customers will experience higher quality services, which means heightened enjoyment levels and increased levels of physical activity. And if we do this at an early age, we know that we can build the foundations for a more active, happier and healthier life. The Active Code investigates what it really takes to be a successful leader and how organisations can combat physical inactivity.
We won't be alone through this journey. We are joined by business owners and experts from our sector, as well as inspirational people from outside our industry. We'll understand the importance of physical activity to our guests, reflect on leadership experiences, and gain thought-provoking insights on how we can crack the Active Code and get more children more active more often. If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and subscribe. We are joined for this episode by Adam Holland, Managing Director for Progressive Sports, Derbyshire, Nottingham and Chesterfield. Adam and his team aim to activate activity in their community. Adam has been an MD for over 9 years and during this episode honestly talks about the journey so far, including the ups and the downs. There are many sole business owners in our sector and this episode gives reassurance that many of us go through similar journeys and it can be lonely at the top. However, Adam's passion and drive provide motivation and tips to those in a similar boat. Enjoy the pod. Adam Holland, welcome to the Active Code podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
More than welcome. It's great to have you. Could you start off by giving our listeners a bit of a background in terms of your career journey so far?
Yeah, so I started a little bit differently actually. So as soon as I left high school, at 16, I went straight into employment. So I went straight into being a sports coach apprentice at Port Vale. That wasn't the avenue that I wanted to go down. I wanted to follow my dad's trade and go into plumbing and electrician and things like that. But the opportunity came up to go to Port Vale. Obviously, I have a season ticket holder there, so it's a dream come true to pull on that kit for a couple of years. And I learnt how to become a sports coach completely hands-on. So every single day I was out there coaching in schools in Stoke-on-Trent, getting my level 1s and level 2s throughout that, but it was very much sports-based, very much football-based. So I did that for a couple of years at Port Vale. They decided not to keep me on due to financial reasons at the end, so I was at that limbo of, okay, what's next? Obviously, it was devastating to leave Port Vale as it is. So opportunity came up at Progressive Sports for a full-time contract back in 2009. I went straight from Port Vale within 2 weeks, straight to Progressive Sports, to Eddie. So spent a really good 6.5 years under Eddie's umbrella and sat there in the business and thought I was running Soccer Tots, which was the under 5s program, and I was the lead for that. So I thought, how hard can it be to run a business? How hard can this be? Anybody can do it. So that's when I decided to branch out to become a Progressive Sports franchisee in 2015. So 8.5 years later, we've got the whole of the East Midlands as a territory. So we've got Chesterfield and Nottingham and Derbyshire. So yeah, I've gone a little bit of a different way around. So there's no college involved, no university. A lot of running the business has been through support from other people and self-help, to be honest. So yeah, that's a little bit of a different way into running the business, to be honest.
Amazing. So early on, so before that time at Port Vale, kind of sparked your interest in physical activity, and what does it mean to you?
It was always the days when at primary school and you're always the last one to be picked. It still happens now. You're the last one to be picked at lunchtime, so you're always in goal. Then went into high school and became a goalkeeper just because I wasn't good enough to play out. So I thought, I want to be helping other people not to be in that same situation as me. Because obviously high school back then and primary school, that the standard of teaching probably wasn't what it is nowadays because of the funding and things like that. It was very much class teachers taking PE. There wasn't a lot of opportunities back at school. So I wanted to change that. An opportunity came out to volunteer at Port Vale for the year before I became an apprentice. So every Saturday morning, I was taking 2 or 3 hours out of my mornings to go and support children. And that kind of sparked it straight away. Having that opportunity to give something back to the children, and even now to do something with a child that they'll keep for the rest of their life, and you'll teach them something that they couldn't do. An hour later, they can do it, and they've kept that. It's little things like that really motivate, even now, motivate me massively to encourage more children to be physically active.
Amazing.
I mean, would you say that's your passion, Adam? That's the fuel that keeps you going as what is now a business owner with a successful franchise in the East Midlands. Is that the kind of where the passion comes from?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say this in staff meetings to the coaches as well. When you teach a child something that I can't do it, just to see that emotion on a child's face when they can do it. Last week, we launched an under-5s football program. It's the first time we've done it. I wanted to do it from the soccer talk stage previously. And I walked into the room and there was 2 coaches leading it. And I was like, wow, they've got a smile on their face. And I watched a child kick a football for the first time. Their face lit up. The parent's face was overjoyed. There's a lot of enjoyment and joy that comes from sport. So seeing that passion and seeing that ecstatic faces of the children is just amazing. So that's even now, even last week, I was just thrilled to see it. And I came out completely buzzing, to be honest.
Regards yourself and your team. So you've talked about you've had a passion for physical activity and sport probably most of your life, and I assume a lot of your team have as well. How do you promote physical activity to children and young people who aren't necessarily engaged that much in a sport or in a certain activity?
Yeah, so the one thing that I've said to a lot of our schools is we try and remove any barriers to physical activity as possible. So whether that's creating the most inclusive and fun sessions, I know we all say that we can do that, but it's looking outside the box a little bit. So it's doing sports that are unique. We do a lot of glow-in-the-dark activities. So we promote that to schools because as soon as you turn the lights off in a hall, maybe year 5s and 6s start to get a little bit self-conscious about what they look like. So as soon as you turn the lights off and you put a glow-in-the-dark bib on them, they're completely actively into the session. So it's little things like that. It's little things like removing the barriers. And there's a big thing at the minute about getting children to tournaments, the cost involved with that, involved with transport. So we're beginning to bring in tournaments into the schools and having our own kind of progressive sports tournaments. So all our schools will do their own little tournament and then we'll put all the results together. So they're still having that tournament element. But again, we're removing that barrier of I'm having to get a bus, I'm having to get the cost and all the costs associated with that. And that's the one thing that we're trying to instill with everybody is remove any barrier that there is to make it as easy as possible for children to enjoy sport.
I think the glow-in-the-dark sports approach is something very unique, and I know that's something that I see a lot on your socials. Just go into a bit more detail on that, because it must give you a good market positioning as well, because I don't know of anyone else that's delivering glow-in-the-dark type sports, but I completely understand now you've said about making it accessible and making it different. So I'm assuming, Adam, you might run a football session or a dodgeball session that some children may in the past have shied away from, but does that make it a lot different and accessible for kids now because it's something completely different and they're in a different environment, if they like?
Yeah, well, first thing, thanks for telling everybody about Glow in the Dark, because now everyone's going to do it, so I'm going to have to pivot a little bit and find something else to go for. But to the market position, first of all, especially towards the Christmas period, we get so many kind of enrichment activities, brand new schools, because nobody else, like you say, until now, nobody else does glow in the dark sports locally. So that creates a market position for us. because it's a niche. Schools can see exactly why we're doing it. So like you say, it removes the barriers. Children will never do it anywhere else. And it's like when you were young as well, you did laser tag, you did things that glow in the dark, anything dark related. So as soon as you put a sport in there, you could be the best footballer. Put them in a glow in the dark session, it's completely different. So it's little things like that we just tweak. So we're beginning to do other sports as well. I don't want to give too much away, but other sports for glow in the dark as well, just to, if children don't like dodgeball, don't like football, there's something else that we can provide as well.
Adam, sticking with the kind of business element of it, mentioning market positioning, I know you're quite big on the PR side of things, getting your name out there and marketing correctly. What kind of influenced you to put a bit of an emphasis on that? Because I think that's something that's sometimes lacked at organisations in our sector, having that kind of nous around marketing and things like that. So what's given you the motivation to put a lot of effort and resource into those things?
It was during COVID, actually. And just after COVID, I said to the general manager, I said, people don't know about us. Even now, people don't know who Progressive Sports are. You'd send out the odd email because it was perhaps easy. It was quick. You could put together an email in 5 minutes and send it out. But that was as far as it went back then. I said to the team, I said, we need to get our name out there as much as possible. And typically, it was during the COVID period that we started to sponsor events. We started to work with our PR company in Derby. And it was only then when the PR agency said, you've got such an amazing angle here that you can speak to people about. She said, as soon as you send out a story about children and inactivity or physical education, anything, that will fly. That will be on the news, that will be on the radio and everything. So it was more to get our brand out there, because I put a post on LinkedIn this week. There's no better marketing than what other people are talking about. So you've got that social proof. Your name's in the newspaper, your name's on TV, albeit if it's obviously positive news, but that sells itself because it feels trusted. So as soon as you see a news article on TV, it seems like a trusted resource. So it was allowing other people to do our marketing for us. Like I said, I put a LinkedIn post on this week that I went to a school just yesterday, and I did all my sales things. I don't want to know, he said. I said, okay. He says, you've been recommended by 3 or 4 other schools. So all I need to know is what dates you've got, how much it's going to be, and you're in. I said, do you want me to show you the video? No, we're not bothered. We trust you. We trust other people. So when you get to that moment, you realize that something's clicking. So it's absolutely getting that trusted element across from other people as well.
Just sticking on that, Adam, I think from a PR perspective, a lot of people probably don't stick with it. So people might go, oh, we'll put a press release together, or we'll get some local news coverage at a school where we're running a particular activity. And sometimes it just doesn't stick. It gets lost. Other things pop up in the local news that are more important, or they're deemed more important, I should say. So I'm guessing from a marketing perspective, PR is just one piece in that jigsaw. So what would your tips be to other organisations in our sector who may be looking at ways to get noticed a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. So we thought we realised we couldn't do it on our own, because like you say, you could send a press release to a generic editor email address, and that doesn't really work. So we sourced a local PR person, and that was a huge help for us, because without her, she's got every contact that she possible. So, and you're going straight to the main people rather than just to a generic email address. It's like when we email offices at schools, it's just a generic email perhaps, and it won't get passed on. So the biggest tip for that one is to find somebody who's trusted locally with the PR, who has got the contacts, because they'll all say they got contacts. They'll all say straight away, yeah, we can get you on the news. It is going to take time. I think that's the biggest thing that we took away from it. It will take kind of 6 to 12 months for your name, because it'll just be a constant flow of information going to the editors and things like that. So one will land, and as soon as that first one goes and you're on TV, you're on local radio. We've been on 4 times in the past 2 years on local news channels. So that's huge. But that's the biggest tip for me, is to find somebody trusted, somebody local who knows local editors to go for, to be honest, and try not to do it yourself. I think we all try and do things on our own, but actually having that expert support and that external support is quite valuable for this, to be honest.
And how would you find an expert PR agency? Where would you start?
I'm quite big on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So yeah, it came from LinkedIn and a lot of recommendations. It's as simple as, can anybody recommend a PR agency locally? And then this person was recommended by about 7 or 8 different people. We had a few meetings and they kind of made it clear from day one that it's going to take time. They didn't overpromise. So that's, you can Google it and you can do things like that. But until, again, it's like they're recommending progressive sports to other schools. Until you get that recommendation, you start to trust them. So if you can get on LinkedIn and start sharing and asking people, that's the best way that we found.
Yeah. I think your point about finding an expert and surrounding yourself with experts, whether that's internally in your business or externally, in the case of the PR agency, really important for people to remember that, because too many business owners in all sectors try to be a Swiss Army knife, if you like. Whereas actually, rather than being a Swiss Army knife, just go and buy a really top-notch screwdriver to use, as opposed to using the one that comes on the Swiss Army knife. Yeah, some really useful points there. So thank you for sharing that. Just sticking on the business side of things, you've been in the sector for 14 plus years as a franchisee with Progressive for 8.5 years. You've got a good, real business owner experience. So what's your proudest achievement to date?
I might have looked, to be honest. I think the proudest moment for me is just see what it's like now. I know it's not one
progress.
Particular moment.
Okay, Adam, so you've shared all of your HR expertise with us and a few tips there. So thank you for that. I'm assuming you've had plenty of moments that you've been proud of in the 8.5 years at Progressive and obviously 14 plus years in the sector. But have you got one in particular that really stands out?
I've got quite a few, and I think that's because I'm one of those that I always want the next thing, so I never reflect and look back and say, oh, do you know what? That's a really good moment. But for me, one of the proudest moments for me was actually signing the Progressive Sports franchise. So taking that complete leap of faith from just being a full-time employee with a comfortable income, stability. I remember speaking to my girlfriend, now wife, and I said, oh, you know, all that money that we've saved up for a house, I'm going to buy a franchise with it. So, and also for Gemma to have that trust in me to say, you know, it is going to work and it's going to be worth it in the long run. But obviously we were about to move into a property 8 years ago. So that was a real proud moment. I remember sending that first email out, and I remember taking a picture at the bottom of the email signature, and it said Adam Holland, Managing Director. Even to this day, it still doesn't seem real. I don't know what it is, and people that know me, I don't like to say how proud I am and how far we've come. But even like today, and even just looking back on the time that we've had, the ups, the downs, the falls, staff that have come on 6-7 hours a week, and now the full-time management and little things like that. But I'm just proud of where Progressive Sports are right now. We've got up to about 28, 29 schools. We've made tough decisions recently in terms of going to that model of half days and full days that we've all spoken about, and that's really difficult to get to that point. So I'm proud that we've took a lot of hits along the way in schools saying, okay, we don't want that, and kind of biting your tongues thinking, I wish I could go back and say, we'll just do it, but we don't. So I'm proud of that. I'm just proud of the team that we've got as well. It's a lot more together now. Yeah, there's a lot to be proud of. I can't really pinpoint one, but like I said earlier, I don't really look back. I should look back a lot more. I just look forward to, okay, we've got that. What's next? And that's certainly one of my flaws, to be honest.
Loads of moments there. Thank you for sharing those, Adam. Along your journey, who's been the most inspirational leader you've come into contact with or worked with that you've come across?
In terms of working, I've probably got two. I've obviously got Eddie. I hope he's listening to this, and I hope he buys me something for saying this. But obviously Eddie's been there since day one. So I was one of the first full-time employees at Progressive. So I've known him since day one, and he's always had that support. He's always had my back. he's always took me under the wing. Maybe it's because I've been there for so long that we've always had that relationship. But certainly he's living proof of what we can do. And there's never been a time when I'm thinking, I need somebody, because Eddie's always been there. So if there's ever an issue or something, he's always been there. But more recently, I've invested. We obviously spoke earlier about getting experts to support you. Invested since 2020 in a business coach. So I've worked closely with Jimmy Ball, who's a business coach in Derby, and kind of his support is a little bit different than Eddie's, because Eddie's is very kind of sector driven, whereas Jimmy's coming from the business world and leadership. So I've certainly come on as a leader under that leadership, where I've learned a lot of how to run a business from Eddie. So they are my two real kind of leaders that I've worked with, to be honest. And without them, I would say that we'd be in an okay position, but with that support, it's certainly pushed us on to where we are
Sticking
today.
on the leadership side of things, if we were to come and visit you at Progressive and talk to some of your team members about your leadership, what do you think they would say, Alan?
The phrase, "what gets measured gets managed," was coined by the American management consultant Pete Drucker over 40 years ago. Although there have been some alternatives to this phrase, one that resonates with me is "what gets measured gets improved."
In recent years, this alternative phrase has gained popularity, emphasising the idea that measuring progress is crucial to achieving improvement.
Scorecards are a great way to highlight your strengths and identify blind spots in your organisation, while providing instant, actionable steps on how you can improve that needs improving.
So, how does your organisation measure up?
Head to capscorecard.scoreapp.com and take approximately 5 minutes to answer some yes/no questions. Once you've done that, you will get an instant personalised report tailored to your organisation with clear, actionable steps. And it's totally free.
That's capscorecard.scoreapp.com, and the link will be in the show notes too.
It's interesting because I asked this back in May. I asked the team. I'd listened to the Eddie Howe podcast on the Hard Performers podcast, and he said that after he left Bournemouth, he obviously went away, visited so many different clubs. He asked people around him what they thought of him. And I thought, yeah, I don't know what people thought of me back then. So I asked, I said, it's anonymous. You can say what you like about me, but I want to know what my strengths are so I can work on the other areas. And kind of the things that came out was I'm quite a supportive person. So if there's ever a mistake in the management team, and again, I hope they're listening, I hope they agree. If there's a mistake in the management team, I won't come down on them like a ton of bricks. We all make mistakes. So I'm certainly supportive in that sense, and supportive with kind of their well-being at work as well. So I insist that all the staff turn the phones off at 5 o'clock. They don't check emails. They certainly don't check emails at a weekend. So I want them to have that perfect, if possible, work-life balance. I give opportunities. I think that's one thing that came out. If there's a fantastic coach that we've got, I'll always try and push them further. So push them into a leadership role or push them into a management role. Respectful. There's another thing that came out. And the biggest thing, which possibly my downfall as well, is I try and make people feel good. But sometimes it's at the detriment of how I feel. I want people to be happy under me. I want people to see me as a good boss. People that want to come to work and do things for me. But also that can be the opposite, because sometimes I'll take a lot of the hits myself. But as long as they feel good, that's okay. So that's something I'm certainly working on as well.
Would you say that's the main thing you're working on at the moment in terms of getting that balance right? Is there anything else that you're working on at the moment as a leader to progress?
It's around that. It's around the accountability is a big thing, and making sure that, because obviously we've got a leadership team below me. So making sure that everybody is sticking to the plan. Everybody is doing what they said they would do. But there also, something's not going wrong. Something's not going wrong. Need to put the hand up and say, I'm sorry, I haven't done that. But it's also for me to say, why haven't you done that? Because sometimes I'll just brush over it because I want them to still be happy. So if something's not been done, it'd be like, previously, it's a lot better now, but it used to be kind of okay, don't worry, do it next time. So I'm trying to get that accountability and to push the business on a lot further than it is doing. And so far, I'm pushing that on a lot more recently. Yeah, I don't want to be a walkover, but also I want to make people feel good. So it's that fine balance, to be honest.
And you've gone through that, or going through that process. You've certainly gone through it, and probably going through it still. I think we all do, to develop more leaders, managers, leaders within your organisation. Could you just share some of that information with me? Because not everyone is in a position where they've got to a point where they're able to step back and recruit or promote people from within. Can you just share some of initially the challenges that you faced with doing that?
Yeah. So even now, it's progressive sports is my baby. So I'm still very, I don't know, I don't want to give too much away, but I've got to that stage. I looked at it and thought, I can't do everything. You always try and do everything, but then I was working till 9, 10 o'clock, and that work-life balance didn't really work. So it was having kind of people in the team that I could trust, that I could move up and give them that support to go into those managerial positions. Perfect example would be Ria. She's on maternity leave at the minute, but when she started, she was only on, I think it was 4 or 5 hours a week. She was part-time. She was traveling here, there and everywhere, but I could see something in that. I could see that she was willing to go above and beyond. So then she progressed to the 20, the 25 hours, went on to a salary. And then what I'd like to do is give people small little tasks, probably similar to what Eddie did with me. So Eddie put me into soccer tots. It was probably a big thing for him, but I wasn't in charge of progressive sports. It was a small little area of progressive. I try and give small things to see what they like, to see what they can do, and then push them on a little bit further through that. But it's certainly, even 12 months ago, I passed over schools to Lauren. Little things like this. And last year I sat there and I was petrified because I'd given the whole role of renewals over to somebody completely different. So I didn't know what, I was beside myself because I didn't know what was going on, because I could control everything. I could control the renewal meetings. I could control how they went. But now I was sending Lauren into a school. I trust her completely. But that first time I was like, what's going to happen? What happens if she comes out of that school and they said no? What? That was a really uneasy time. A lot easier this year, and it's going to get easier, but it's taking that leap of faith, to be honest, and letting go of things that you don't need to be doing and really growing the business and working well.
I think the challenge is often said there, what are the challenges to develop leaders? The challenge is actually yourself, actually like leading and managing yourself in order to get to that point. So I guess the initial thing now is recognizing that you are the problem as such, and then doing something about it. So you've clearly gone through that process. Are there moments where you've helped people develop? So you mentioned a couple of people already in that team. Are you at a point where you can actually almost create a process? So if you need more people to come into the business and take more responsibility on, is there a process you've got in place that you can pretty much follow? Or is it very much, I've got a gut feeling that this person is going to fit into the role that I want them to fit into and have success?
Yeah. So when the coaches first start, we always show them the pathway of where they could go. But also I think it's important for me to remember, and other people out there as well, that not everybody wants that progression and not everybody wants that managerial. Some people are just happy to go into a primary school and kind of work 9 till 5, and they're happy to do that. And that's great. Some people really want that kind of commitment. Some people want that accountability. Some people do want to be in management. So it's also important. We do a lot of one-to-ones with our team. So it always comes out there when we have discussions. They'll say, I want to be a program manager. What we'd like to do is give them the steps to get to that point, rather than saying, okay, there you go. We want to see why. So they need to prove themselves in other areas as well. But it's little things that if you turn up at schools all the time, if you got renewals spot on every time, if your school's always talking about you, little things like that, you think, yeah, there's something about you that you're going to go places with us. But a lot of it is down to just having that conversation, see where they want their career to go, asking for their 1, 3 and 5 year plan with progressive as well. So That's a huge area, to be honest.
Adam, moving on to more of the kind of wider sector, what are your views on leadership in our sector at present?
Yeah, there's a lot of great people doing really good work in our sector. And I was thinking about this question before I came on, that our sector seems to be one of those sectors that always is been looked down on. You have conversations with people, and it's even today, the general conception of sports coaches is the young people come out of college or school, haven't got any qualifications. They might pull the phone out every so often and check the messages. They're not very well dressed, and it's a big stigma that all us as leaders in the world, we need to try and address, because there's so many good people in our sector doing fantastic things, and I don't think we get enough credit for what we do. It's a tricky question. It's a tricky question, to be honest, but it's trying to change that narrative of who is actually delivering these sessions and trying to paint that picture of, no, they're not people that haven't got a clue. They are really highly qualified people, like a French teacher would be, like an art teacher would be. They're at the same caliber. Just because they've got a tracksuit on doesn't make them any different than anybody else. That's a huge challenge for a lot of leaders in our sector, to be honest, is changing that perception of sports coaches.
Any tips on how we try and make that perception shift?
Good uniform. No, it's difficult because again, we work with some fantastic head teachers. You also come across some head teachers who are they want their way that they've done for the past 20, 35 years. And if they've had a bad experience with the sports coach, it's going to affect us straight away. I don't think there's a magic wand for that. We've just got to keep doing what we do. And all the sectors got to keep working hard to really propel sports coaching as a specialism, not just, we're just ticking a box to get PE covered and PPA covered.
And also sharing good practice. Yeah, that's quite a few organisations miss the importance of that. It comes full circle to the PR conversation. It's making sure that we're shouting about the great work that goes on in our sector, the thousands of children that we're engaging in activity, the progressions that people have within our sector, and both out of our sector, because we quite often lose people to other sectors because they've almost worked their way up a ladder and can't see further progression coming within the organisation or within the sector itself, which means we lose really good people. So yeah, I think the whole kind of showcasing that good practice is something that we certainly need to do better. And working with the likes of SIMSPA around workforce development and making sure that there's a common theme that runs throughout it. You're right, people have a huge impact in our sector. And quite often, even the people in the space that are delivering sessions and working with children probably don't realise the impact that they're having. But we need to make sure that the people have they're fit for purpose from a qualifications, skills, experience level, because it only takes one bad egg to pull down a lot of people who are doing great work in the sector.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're all up against, especially in our sector, is there's always going to be somebody who's cheaper than us, but it's what you also get for your money, to be honest. It's really easy. I could do it now. I could get a bag of footballs and just go to the local school and say, give me 20 quid and I'll do your session. Sometimes for the school, they go, yeah, because it fits in the budget. But from the school's point of view as well, they've got to see the quality that they're getting for their money. But like you say, we also don't shout enough about what we do as a sector. And we don't shout enough about how many children we see a week, how many new children have attended our after school clubs, how many boys and girls, little things like that we need to shout a little bit more. But it's also finding that balance that we're not kind of over-egging what we do, because there's always going to be challenges. So it's having that balance of we're doing fantastic things, but there's a hell of a lot more work to do as well towards it.
And Adam, you mentioned the High Performance podcast already, episode that stood out for you. If listeners wanted to enhance their leadership skills and their business, what 3 books, podcasts, or people would you recommend?
I've got three books or books, should I say, for the wider listeners across the United Kingdom, the books. I've got three books that I focus with, to be honest. And one of them is the Barcelona Way. So the leadership style of Pep Guardiola when he was at Barcelona. That's a really good book to read. I've read that a few times, and the way his culture's set and things like that. Traction. If you want to propel your business, Traction is a really good book to get your processes in place, your weekly meetings, your annual plans, your strategic plans and things like that. But one that's bizarre, and I don't know if most people know this one, is one called The Sheikh CEO. I've been to Dubai a couple of times, and it's incredible, the leadership style in Dubai, because you look at how the country's moved on over the years, and the the ruler of Dubai, how he leads his people is phenomenal. If anybody can actually sit down and have a look at the leadership style of the ruler of Dubai, it's certainly something that's probably to my detriment. Well, why can't we do it? Let's go and do it and support people. Maybe people don't, especially in my management team, don't like that, because I'm like, come on, let's just go and do it. Let's go and do it. But certainly The Sheikh CEO, the Barcelona Way and Traction are my kind of three go-to books, and it's something that I always refer back to and read quite regularly.
Adam, is there anything from those books that you've mentioned there that you think could really help shift our sector in the right direction?
In particular, kind of The Sheikh CEO, the main thing was creating the opportunities. Obviously, that was more focused around creating opportunities for people living in Dubai. But if we keep a focus as a sector on creating opportunities, always new things, because it's really easy to say, right, we've got after-school clubs running, football, that'll do. But it's trying to find that new things, thinking outside the box, who's not only will it create more opportunities for children, create more opportunities for the business as well. Removing the barriers was, obviously I've mentioned that quite a few times today, but that's also part of the Sheikh CEO's way of creating the opportunities of removing barriers. So everybody, no matter what kind of your financial background is, anybody can access sport locally. And that's certainly one thing that we're trying to push as much as possible. We've got a few things in our pipeline to really push, so people in our community come to us for physical activity, whether that's funded or whatever. But we want as many children to be active as possible. So to do that, we need to create opportunities for them.
$1 million question to finish, Adam. What one thing do organisations in our sector need to do to crack the active code and get more children more active more often?
I don't want to say what I've just gone through about the creating the opportunities, but that's massive. So I think one thing that we've done previously is sometimes it's easy to not do something because of finances, but actually taking the finance out, can we put on some free sessions locally to children? Can we put some free sessions onto schools just to give those children that opportunity? How amazing would it be if you could just get, 100 children down a football centre on a Saturday morning, not paying anything? I know it's financial risk to the business. However, you're hitting 100 children there that might not usually come, especially in certain areas. So it's hard to do because, like I say, the financial reasons is difficult. But if you can create stuff, the possibilities for the business afterwards will be endless as well. And you're attracting more children being physically active in your community. And that's what we're all here to do, to be honest.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Adam. I think the opportunity is the key word really that's come out of this pod. So thank you for the opportunity to take 40 minutes of your time today to listen to your story and share the journey that you've been on and your team are going on. I think it's amazing what you've achieved. There's one thing that you mentioned earlier that I stood here thinking about, and that's the whole reflection piece. And I think that reflection is so important for anybody, because generally we just get busy, don't we? So we need to really make sure that we're reflecting, ideally every day. It's something I didn't used to do. It's something I do now every day, just end of a day. For me, that could be at 4 o'clock. It could be at 6 o'clock. It could be sometimes, unfortunately, be at midnight. But just writing down, okay, what are the 3 things or 1 thing that I've achieved today that I'm proud of? Because typically, if you come onto a podcast and 2 random blokes say, what's the proudest thing you've achieved? You start thinking, oh, gee, where do I start? Or have I actually achieved anything that I'm proud of? But actually, if you do that on a daily basis and then you reflect end of a week, end of a month, end of a year, you look back and you think, wow, actually, I'm achieving things. And it's a big motivator as well. So yeah, it's something I definitely 100% recommend that you start doing. So next time you come on the pod, we ask that question, you can give us an answer straight away.
Straight away. Yeah, it's one of those. It's very difficult to look back. It's very difficult to blow your own trumpet a little bit as well. And we've all got, especially in our sector, we've all got so much to be proud of. So it's actually taking that moment to see how many children that we see, how many coaches you've got out there delivering work, and even tracking how many hours a week a child's been inspired by our sector. Yeah, I need to do a lot more reflection, and for the positive reasons, not, oh my gosh, why didn't I do that? Yeah,
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And Adam, where can listeners reach out and connect with you?
Like I mentioned, I'm quite big on LinkedIn. People always say that. I'm obviously on LinkedIn. If not, have a look at our Facebook page, which is Progressive Sports Derbyshire, Chesterfield and Nottingham. Or they can if anybody wants to drop me an email and kind of talk about the journey, especially from the beginning of the business, drop me an email, a.holland@progressive-sports.co.uk. And like people always say, I'm more than happy to help. Yeah, look forward to speaking to
Brilliant.
someone.
Thanks for your time, Adam.
Cheers, Adam.
No worries. Thank you.
To subscribe to the pod, search for the Active Code on your podcast app. Let's work together to get more people more active more often.